Hello and welcome to What Up GNV. I'm Stephen Butler, the Executive and Artistic Director with the Actors Warehouse. And What Up GNV is an opportunity to introduce our AW family and friends to some of our community partners, where we can find out who they are, who they serve, and the projects they're working on for our community. And with us today, we have Virginia Brissette. She's the President and CEO for the Jewish Council of North Central Florida, along with Director of Community Engagement and Programs, William Alford, and the Family Programs Coordinator, Alicia Rudin. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So I just want to start this off by, first of all, let's just get some little history about the JCNCF, the Jewish Council of North Central Florida. And Virginia, could you share some information about history about the program and the organization rather, and then what segments of the community do you serve?
Certainly. So we want to thank you, Stephen, for giving us this opportunity to be on your show today. Yeah. We really appreciate this opportunity, and we're looking forward to this conversation. I am proud to be here to speak about the Jewish Council. We've been in existence here in Gainesville since the early 70s. Although we weren't called the Jewish Council in those days, we've evolved over time. But we've been the Jewish Council for probably a little over 20 years now. And our main mission is to provide educational, social, and charitable activities for the North Central Florida general community, but in particular the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. And our catchment area technically goes from Lake City to the Villages, which is about a 100-mile stretch of the middle of Florida. But most of our activity is centered here in Gainesville, and that's where most of our programs happen. We are also tapped into an international network of the Jewish Federations in North America, which represents about 300 organizations in North America, South America, and all over the world. And they are sort of our parent organization that we work with. And our primary mission is to fundraise and to provide these local community programs.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So you said in the early years you weren't always known as the Jewish Council, so you've evolved into that. What was the name that you were working with back then? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure that it started as the Gainesville Jewish Appeal, which in many communities they were, whatever the community was, Jewish Appeal, and their primary mission was to fundraise and to be a pass-through. So all of the money fundraised in that community would then be allocated to Jewish Federations in North America, who would then support Jewish causes in different places where Jews were in need. Okay. So it focused on, airlifts out of different countries or Holocaust survivors living in the Soviet Union, but it was mostly focused on fundraising. And it wasn't until the late 90s that this community, after a series of conversations, decided to divide up those funds a little bit more and provide local programs here in Gainesville while also supporting international Jewish causes.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And so, you're still working with Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union? Is that
yes? Yeah. That's still a big. In fact, we have 3 international partners that we work with, and the Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, also known as the Joint, has a special campaign right now where all those funds are targeted at Jews in the former Soviet Union, specifically Holocaust survivors, but mostly elderly Jews who in the Ukraine and Russia and in places where there aren't a lot of robust social services. Our organization provides, and many others, provide funding to help them with things like food and heat and clothing and stuff like that.
Great. So this is a wonderful segue into talking about the fundraising. So what are some of your fundraising efforts?
Absolutely. So as I said, we fundraise for local Jewish causes and actually local causes that are not necessarily Jewish, in addition to the worldwide programs that we support. Our annual campaign funds our local activities like PJ Library that you'll hear about, our Community Service Day in November, which is known as Mitzvah Day, which we've done for 11 years now, which supports all kinds of different agencies in the Gainesville area. The Gainesville Jewish Film Festival, which was supposed to be happening in March, but unfortunately we had to postpone it. Wow. And our Holocaust Remembrance Day and our Israel Day celebration, which we'll also speak more about. The annual campaign also supports 2 other international partner agencies, which are the Beit Ruth Village, which is a home for girls in a city a little bit north of Tel Aviv, and the Jaffa Institute, which is also based in Tel Aviv, which supports citizens in that community, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, otherwise. They're just a wonderful social service agency in the Tel Aviv area. So in addition to the Joint Distribution Committee, we fund Beit Ruth Village and the Jaffa Institute. So those are our main charitable partners that when we say we fundraise for worldwide causes, those are the 3 things that money goes to.
Right.
If you would like me to continue, I can tell you a little bit more about what we do locally.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Which is, in addition to our social and cultural programs, we also are part of a network of agencies in the Gainesville area that help support our most vulnerable citizens. And we have a women's philanthropy group called Mitzvah Makers. Yes. And in Hebrew, mitzvah is translated as a good deed, but really it's a commandment. And so, the Jewish tradition commands us to love thy neighbor and to take care of them when we can. So this philanthropy group meets every other month. The women pool their donations, and then they hear cases from our partner agencies. And so we are able to help individuals with cases that can't be addressed by traditional social service agencies. Okay. And since we've adopted this group in 2013, they've distributed over $75,000 to agencies like Bread of the Mighty, Family Promise, Peaceful Paths, the Acorn Clinic, St. Francis House, the Star Children's Theater. So lots and lots of partner agencies in Alachua County who help with our most vulnerable citizens. And so we're really proud of that group. And right now, during the times that we're in, those monies are more important than ever. And we didn't meet in April, but we'll be meeting again in March. Right. And those women will make decisions about, probably about $2,000 worth of aid that they can give out locally.
Mm-hmm. That is great. This is so great to hear. And, actually, now that you're mentioning this with Mitzvah Makers, I do recall one of the members of that group actually approached me at Actors Warehouse and asked us how we could, possibly collaborate on a fundraising activity. So I was like very excited about that, unfortunately, and I was like, everything just kind of like blew up, because we were kind of working together, around about this time of the year, this same time this year. But yeah, unfortunately that didn't happen. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Actors Warehouse and the Mitzvah Makers can actually collaborate on a fundraising activity. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So getting out the word is very important about with the fundraising that you've got going on. And so speaking of getting out the word, William, let's talk about some of the publications that your organization works with. So I know that you've got both a monthly print publication, which is the Chronicle, and then you also have a weekly e-newsletter. So let's talk about some of the how this is, how what it's all about, what's its content. Go ahead, please.
Certainly. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, Stephen, to share this with folks who may not be aware of these publications. As you mentioned, our main publication is a monthly print newsletter. It's basically the small newspaper of what's going on in the North Central Florida Jewish community. We send that out to approximately 1,000 households every month. And in the Chronicle, we have a few goals that we try to reach every month. We try to recap our programming as it progresses every month, and also provide information about upcoming programming. That's a little bit different now in the world we're in. We're promoting our virtual programming as opposed to recapping, people being together physically. We also try to use that publication to acknowledge important life events that happen in the Jewish communities. So, you know, if a member of the Jewish community has received a specific award of some kind or of acknowledgement, we like to share that with the wider community. I know we all assume that everybody keeps in touch via social media these days, but you'd be surprised. I hear from people who say that, there are people out there who still get their news by reading it on a physical newspaper.
Right.
So we just try to keep everybody in touch that way. We, of course, use it as part of our fundraising efforts to highlight our partners that Virginia mentioned. So we keep people informed on what's going on at Jaffa Institute, what's going on at Beit Ruth, the efforts by the Joint Distribution Committee. So that's part of our the content we have every month. And then we also just try to highlight things of concern to the Jewish community. There have been some issues over the past couple years in the school system that we've tried to highlight, that people, they may be aware of these things and not know where to really go for coverage of it. So we try to do our best to just keep people informed on those sorts of things. And also, more currently, we're also trying to keep people informed on just the state of the nonprofit sector. As with all sectors of the economy, we have a lot of open-ended questions about our future, and so we've tried in recent editions to communicate that to our readers and our donors. In addition to the monthly print newsletter, we do send out every week a e-news blast that goes to many more than 1,000 households. And on that, we try to do something similar, keep people abreast of what's going on in their community, what sort of events they can be looking forward to. And again, we're trying to stay in touch with those partners and make sure that if they're going online with things that would traditionally be done in person, that they're still able to share that with people. And, specifically with an e-news, we can embed direct links to that to make it really easy for people to participate in these sorts of things. And yeah, we also try to share current events globally in there. There's a small sidebar with news about what's going on. Recently, my main challenge with that is I'm trying to really focus on sharing positive stories as well, because I know personally I've been overwhelmed a little bit with the negative news about everything that's going on. So I really want to be able to communicate to people the bright spots and everything.
Right. So you're trying to find a healthy balance.
Right. Exactly. That's definitely something that I'm working on at the moment.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And actually, just to let you know, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your email list. I get that newsletter every week. So.
Very welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I enjoy scrolling through it and just reading what's happening with the organization and with the Jewish community. It's really good. It's very insightful. So thank you so much for.
You're very welcome. And if anybody would like to join that list, they can reach out to us at office@jcncf.org, and we can add their email to the weekly distribution list.
That sounds great. Perfect. So once again, this is like perfectly, and you guys, I don't know if I'm doing this or you're doing it, but this is another wonderful, perfect segue into talking about literature. So we've got Alicia. Now, Alicia, as we said earlier, you are the Family Programs Coordinator. And let's talk about the online activities for families through the PJ Library and PJ Our Way programs. And actually, let's just talk about the library itself.
Mm-hmm. So PJ Library is an organization that it's funded by the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. Mm-hmm. And it's a place, so they provide Jewish content books to families who are trying to raise their children in a Jewish way monthly. And they're geared toward the different age groups. And so we're the representatives in the Gainesville area. And part of what we do is normally we try and provide get-together events to celebrate holidays and to get other Jewish families together so they could meet each other and just to create community. What we've been doing now is not as much doing a data dump, because there's so much information out there, but trying to curate what I share on our PJ Library page and our PJ Library group so that parents aren't overwhelmed, but they do have options that would hopefully be appropriate and that they would find helpful.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So let's speak to, understanding that the narrative of how we create our narrative, actually how narratives are created and how it can be used against folks. And you could speak to the importance of the PJ Library and the Jewish literature that you house, and the importance of the narrative that's that we're working with.
Having two children who grew up in the Gainesville area, and the challenges that children have growing up, and I'm sure you can understand, not seeing in literature people that are like you and that are doing the same things that you do.
Right.
And so this provides literature for children to see, other children, seeing that how they celebrate different holidays, even though they may not be celebrated in schools, that other children in the world do this. So I think it's, as anything, seeing yourself within literature is important for just being validated that just there are other people like you around, which I think is just really, really important.
Yeah. I totally get it. Totally get it. Being an African American in America, it's just like, wow. It's like, I remember growing up myself, not seeing, people like me. And I remember actually one of the things that got me really hooked on performing was, first of all, I love to do it to begin with, but aside from actually seeing people that, those, 1 in a million people that I would actually see on television, such as, Diana Ross and the Supremes, or Leslie Uggams, or someone like that, a performer on television, it was like a really big deal. But then I remember actually my mother taking me to when I was about 11 years old, taking me to a Broadway production, a touring company. It was a musical review titled Hubie, about Hubie Blake, the musical Hubie Blake. And I saw that, and my eyes were just open because I saw people like me on stage singing and dancing. So, and I know that, this is how it is for a lot of people in our community, in our country, in our world. It's like we need to see ourselves in order to be validated, to know that, yes, I can do this. And so thank you. That's, I like I said, I totally get it. But and thank you so much for housing that information. That is very important for your community. So which kind of takes me to, well, William, and because we're talking about celebrating, celebrating one's culture and all that wonderful stuff. William, let's talk about something of celebration, Israeli Independence Day. So give me a little bit of information about that. How has this come about? What is it all about?
Sure. So this is a program that, the Jewish Council has been responsible for many years now. As you say, it is an Independence Day celebration. It's kind of, if you're not familiar with it, it's an easy analogy to make with the 4th of July. It's a day of celebration, a day of pride and reflection. This is usually one of our last community programs in the spring and early summer, as it starts to become way too hot to do anything outside with the community. This is kind of our last big fun time with everyone out in the sun and celebrating Israel. But as with everyone this year, we're having to practice social distancing and deal with all of that. So I'm actually pretty proud of how we transitioned pretty seamlessly into a virtual event for this. It's our first time doing this, so there were definitely some things to learn about this. But what we've done is work with our artist Rami Feinstein, who's based in Israel, who had originally planned to be flying to the U.S. to perform at several different community Yom HaAtzmaut celebrations in Florida. And so we've just taken this to an online format. It'll be Facebook Live on our JCNCF Facebook page on this Sunday at 3 p.m. So yeah, Rami will be joining us from his living room. He's also under all of these restrictions and trying to make the best of it.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be a concert experience for the Jewish community and anyone else who would like to tune in on our Facebook page at that time.
Nice, very nice. And when is this typically celebrated? What day? Because like I said, you've got 4th of July. We know when the 4th of July is, but what day is actually the the Israeli Independence Day?
Oh, right. Actually, maybe Virginia can help me with this year. Is it the 26th? Because we don't always actually end up being able to schedule it on official Yom HaAtzmaut. And with everything going on this year, I've actually lost track of if we were able to keep it at the right date this year.
Okay, so because we're not observing it on the actual date, and the date that it falls on in the Hebrew calendar changes every year. So this year, look at the calendar. Monday the 27th is actually Memorial Day, because in their calendar, Memorial Day is celebrated the day before Independence Day. Those things go together. So the 27th will be Memorial Day, and then the 28th, 29th are Independence Day. So maybe it's the 28th is Memorial Day and the 29th is the day, but we
28th is Memorial.
The 28th is Memorial Day and the 29th is actually Independence Day. Okay, so
okay. And that's in April, right?
Yeah,
in April.
April, yeah. So next week. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So that's all right. So Memorial Day. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And when you say Memorial Day, we're talking about the Holocaust remembrance, correct?
No, actually, Holocaust. So there are 3 holidays that come right in a row.
Wow. Okay.
To reflect how Israel as a state was founded.
Okay.
And we know that it was founded right after the Second World War as a place for Jews to be able to go. So they celebrate Holocaust Remembrance Day, not to be confused with International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is actually in January. But in Israel's calendar, this past week, sundown on Monday to Tuesday was Holocaust Remembrance Day, which we call Yom HaShoah. And then a week later, they observe Memorial Day, which is the day to remember Israel's fallen soldiers and martyrs, people who died in terrorist attacks, which is a completely separate day from people who passed away in the Shoah. Yeah. And then the day after Memorial Day is the day of celebration. So those first 2 holidays are much more somber, reflective, as William said. And then Independence Day is a celebration of the birth of the state and is very much a holiday to be celebrated like 4th of July. So yeah, so those 3 holidays were planned on purpose in that interval after Passover, which Passover ended last week. And Passover harkens back to the traditional time when the Israelites escaped slavery in Egypt and then made their journey through the desert. So those holidays are intentionally linked in time because all of them together create the narrative of the establishment of both the Jewish people and the state of Israel as we know it today.
Okay.
So there's your little history lesson.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. And I learned something new today. Yeah. Woohoo! I always have this saying. I was like, well, I learned something new today, so I get to go home. But that I'm already home.
But you are home.
I'm already home. Great. So let's go into something here. I'm looking at my notes here. There's another program that your organization is working with that coordinates, and this is an outreach to Jewish seniors. So I understand that Alicia, you are instrumental in facilitating this outreach. Tell me some more about it.
Well, we have various programs, and since families go from birth to death, and so not only do I work with children, I also work with adults of all ages, and specifically we have we do a lot of outreach to our seniors in the Gainesville and North Central Florida area, and because of the virus, the COVID virus, and everybody's been quarantined themselves, we've actually touch base with a bunch of our seniors in the community, see what we can do to help them. We have some volunteers that have been really quite instrumental in helping us to do this outreach, because it can be hard for us, ends up being William and I doing it and being able to do some calls. And so, we're also here if they need anything. They know they can contact us either by phone. Mostly the seniors prefer using the phone.
Yeah.
And so, that's part of what we do is we're kind of a clearinghouse, being able to put people in need in contact with organizations within the community where they can get some help.
All right. Very good. Thank you. And that's very valuable as well, too. It's a very valuable service. So thank you so much, guys, for making sure that we, stay connected with our seniors in our community. That's very important. Thank you. So, and I actually want to kind of talk about one more thing here. And Virginia, let's talk about the online program for the Holocaust Remembrance. For Remembrance Day. So, like it's typically everyone comes together to celebrate it, to recognize it. But this year, of course, being under the conditions that we're currently experiencing, tell me some more about your online program. How is that working for you?
Sure. So, a little bit of a background. We've been doing this program for almost 25 years now. It is a community program that we are the host of. The committee is made up of several members from the Jewish Council Board, but also community members who have a personal interest in Holocaust remembrance. And they work really well together to produce an annual event where we have a speaker or some other kind of program that tells a story from the Holocaust. And in many cases, we've had survivors come and speak and tell their stories. And unfortunately, as time moves on, we have fewer and fewer of those individuals with us to tell those stories. So, for example, last year, instead of having a survivor speak, we hosted the Actors Warehouse, who put on... Right. Who staged a play for the Jewish Council that was based on letters of family members who did not survive the Holocaust. So it was parents who were living in Germany who were writing letters to their son who was living in the United States. And all of these letters got turned into a play. And we were very fortunate to be able to partner with the Actors Warehouse last year to offer that as our community Holocaust remembrance. And so those are the kinds of things that we've done historically. This year, because of the current situation, we were not able to have the program that we had planned, which was a talk featuring Peter Konstam. Peter was a child in Amsterdam in World War II, and his family were neighbors of the Frank family, who we all know. Anne Frank is probably the most famous victim of the Holocaust, and Peter was her friend, and occasionally she was his babysitter. So there was this one-to-one relationship with this iconic Holocaust figure, and Peter was going to be our speaker, and unfortunately, we were not able to host him, and will be, hopefully, God willing, and everything being back to whatever normal will be, we'll be able to have him next year. But so instead, we spent some time brainstorming what we could do with this. And other communities have had virtual speakers. We felt very strongly that we wanted to have Peter come and speak in person, which is why we just didn't Zoom him in. So instead of doing a live something via Zoom, one of our committee members, Philip Schwartz, who has for many years been our videographer and kind of our curator of different community events, he went through the archives of our Holocaust remembrance programs, and he pulled out several different video pieces that he edited together to make a 30-minute program. So for those people who are familiar with what we do with our Holocaust remembrance, we usually spend about half an hour at the very beginning of the program doing some prayers, usually a poem, a candlelighting service, and other sort of more spiritual elements to the program. And Philip very masterfully edited together several segments of that, which featured some community members, some very beloved community members who passed recently, including Estelle Aiden, who just recently passed away in the month of March, and a couple of other folks who have passed over the last few years, including Frank Towers, who's been a really major figure in our community for Holocaust education. And so anyway, so this 30-minute video went live Monday night, which is when Holocaust Remembrance Day started. And it is available to view on our website. And if anyone wants to see it, they can go to www.jcncf.org. And I think we have it uploaded to our site, maybe not quite yet. William's looking at me like,
yeah, we're still in the process of that. We do have the link to the standalone site that hosts it in our e-news each week. We have to get the technical back end sort of thing to get it living on our website.
Okay, so it'll be available soon.
Okay.
If anybody wants to, and in particular wants to see it right away, they can contact our office and we can send them the link to it. But it's a little less than 30 minutes, and it's lovely, and we're really proud that we were able to produce this in a very short period of time, and we're just grateful that in the absence of a community gathering event that we were able to offer something for our community to mark that moment.
That is great. Good. Well, I can definitely tell you that it was quite an honor for Actors Warehouse to be a part of last year's celebration. And then also, we were even more honored to work with Ken Wald, as well as Chris Malley, who's a playwright for the play The Ghosts on the Wall, and to actually produce that in our regular season, this season right here. So it actually took place in November 2019, and so we had a really wonderful time actually giving it more. Giving the production some more dimension, because it was originally written as just a play reading, and but when I read it and actually had an opportunity to do a semi full production of it that we did at the at last year's event, my hopes and dreams were to actually do a full production, in which, like I said, which we did back in November. And it has come to my attention that the playwright has become a little bit more inspired, and he wants to do some revisions and see how we can possibly give it even more life and legs. And so I'm looking forward to that as well too, and see how we can be a part of that. So I really enjoyed doing that, working on that production, and I was truly grateful for the opportunity to work with your community on that. So it was very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So guys, as we end, we're going to bring this to, bring it all home now. I want you to think about a word or phrase you would use to describe the Jewish Council of North Central Florida and its programmings. Word or phrase, something profound, inspirational. Let's start with you first, Alicia.
I would say resilient.
Yeah.
We have just, we were talking about it. We were just amazed how all three of us, as things have changed, we just kind of brainstormed and figured out new and different ways to present things to our constituents. And so I just think we're just very resilient.
Very good. Thank you. William.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the word responsive, because definitely in my years of working here, I'll say this is not the first thing that's kind of caught us off guard. The global pandemic, there have been other situations over the past few years that, we've had to pivot to respond to. And yeah, I think we do a good job of being responsive both to situations and also to the input of community members. We're always open to hearing feedback about our programming, input on what people would like to have in programming. So yeah, we just try to be as responsive as we can to both of those things.
Very good. And last but not least, Virginia.
So I'm tempted to try to throw out an R word so I can just be, in the theme with others. But I'm going to say connections because I think in large part, a lot of what we do is to try to help community members connect to each other and to help agencies connect to each other. But just to be there to provide opportunities for people to get together and connect, whether it's educational or charitable or otherwise, but putting the right people in the room together is one of the things that I think that we do well. And it's one of the things that I think is really important for an organization to feel like you're bringing people together instead of dividing them up. So connections.
Connections, very important. I love it. Those are three absolutely wonderful, very powerful words: resilient, responsive, and connections. Great, that is great. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And we'd like to once again thank our friends from the Jewish Council of North Central Florida for joining us. Virginia Brissette, the president CEO of the council, along with the William Alford, who is the director of community engagement programs. And then we also want to thank Alicia Rudin, which is the family program coordinator. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us. And for our viewing audience, for more information on the programs that the JCNCF is working on, be sure to visit their website at Virginia.
www.jcncf.org.
There you go. And for more information about what we're doing at Actors Warehouse, make sure you visit our website at actorswarehouse.org. All righty. So once again, thank you for joining us for What Up GNV. This is Stephen Butler reminding you that it's always good to know what's up in our communities. Thank you.